draw a little teardrop in my eye. Daniel forgot to do that because we were having phone issues.
All right, it's technical difficulties one more time, as usual. That's how these things roll, so here we go. Hey, check it out, guys. Alex Jones says there's a war on for your minds. Well, I think he has it almost right. Truth is, I think there's actually a war on for your child's mind. Slight distinction. So find out why on tonight's edition of the Unframe of Mind Show.
You're listening to the Unframe of Mind Show, the place to have the most mind-stretching, unprotected, intellectual intercourse of your life. Your hosts battle the forces of evil by lobbing fiery balls of truth, reason, and evidence over safe room walls.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the show out while you talk about your work.
Share is caring.
Sharing is caring.
So, yeah, I had my parole hearing today, and it went well. So it looks like I'm getting out in 1 week from today. So I will be officially to get back onto social media. Well, that is Facebook. And I can go back to offending everybody as per normal. So, now, so me and Daniel have been talking about kind of changing things up a little bit. We're going to try to go to Fridays and start running the show at 8 o'clock Friday evenings, which is Central Time, and then probably go for an hour, and then probably doing a Zoom call immediately following the show and talk to other members about, you know, the conversations that we discussed. So that's something that we've wanted to try out. I work nights, so it's been a little hard for me to get here on time and then do the show, then go to work, and then by the time I get off at 7 o'clock in the morning, I am exhausted. So now that Daniel has changed professions, we have now talked about going to Friday, since we're both off. Saturday, that doesn't really kind of give us any kind of time, you know, constraints. So that's something we're going to try out, and hopefully we'll get more people interacted with the show and roll that funky. No, you did roll that.
I did roll that. Hey, do us a favor and share the show.
Sharing is caring.
I am trying to get my mouse working, and my mouse is not wanting to work, and nothing's. Hang on, I got to switch this battery out. This is driving me nuts.
Yeah, you know, we actually change our seating positions because Daniel needed to be a little bit closer to the computer for his wireless keyboard. And as you can tell, we have a fancy new table.
And now the wireless mouse ain't working.
Do you need the mouse? You want to touch my mouse?
Yeah, I don't think your mouse is going to do me any good.
It doesn't do a whole lot of people any good.
Here we go. I got the share to work. All right, sweet.
So, are we getting it going?
We are getting it going, slowly but surely.
There you go.
All right, what's up, folks?
What's up, everybody? Hello, hello, hello.
Heading over to the YouTubes.
Becky, Jason, Erica, good to see you, sweetheart. Who else is on here? Kirby's watching.
There you go. There you go. Oh, good Lord. Right. Now I got to sign into this. Boy, I had to shut down my whole computer. I had to shut my whole computer down and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, it does help to talking to your mic.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
This is crazy. I should have.
And what's up, Uden? We're working out some kinks because as you see, we have new headphones now, and we've kind of changed things up a little bit. Daniel's been doing a lot of things without my permission since I've been locked up in Facebook jail. So there you go. Let's see. No mouse clicky for Daniel, Becky. I'm not exactly sure what. Oh, they're talking about yeah.
Hey, I can click all the mice I want.
And Rita is on. Hello, Rita.
All right, we are going to get this. I promise you.
Oh, they're talking about feedback.
Yep. See, that's what Facebook does. They automatically start playing like I want to just, you know, as if I'm not just trying to share the link out like a normal human being. Okay. So, there's a war.
All right, so Erica just sent me a message on Facebook saying, I can't comment, I'm in jail. Please make sure to let everyone know. She is now currently serving 30 days in Facebook jail as well. So if you want to talk to, well, Erica, I was going to say, you can probably head over to Facebook, or not Facebook, but YouTube, and you can interact with us in the comments over there if you'd like. Now, see, she's actually able to use Messenger. I am completely banned on everything that Facebook allows you to do. So, you know, I'm like, that's one of the reasons why we've been having fun with the whole Facebook jail diaries and why I kind of did this whole dress up thing. And if you've read any of the stories, it's been a lot of fun co-writing these with Daniel. over the last 20-something days that we've been doing this. So, and then I think at the end of it, you're going to do something up that's going to. Are you all right, homie?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I think we're good.
So at the end of the 30 days, he's going to put something together, kind of compiling all the stories into one little, I guess.
Blog post.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on the website so y'all can find them. So check this out. Something we haven't done in a little while. Something that I'm sure you guys are just totally wanting to see some more of. It's
Not
our
really.
famous PHOBEISMIST segment of the show.
We are published on that, by the way. Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, I know. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. So check this out. Here we go.
Shit.
Here we go.
PHOBEISMIST. PHOBEISMIST.
Alrighty.
And yes, that's my actual
on
voice.
today's episode of the PHOBEISMIST, we're going to tell you why you should be offended by telescopes and looking glasses and binoculars and all sorts of shit.
This is too easy, dude.
Oh, well, if you got something, let's hear it.
I mean, come on. It all goes back to the fake news. You're seeing just whatever is through the lens of that telescope.
What else you got?
That's offensive, dude. You can't see anything beyond just the lens of that telescope, right?
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
What would you think is offensive?
No, I mean, there is a number of reasons why this is offensive. I'd like to hear you folks in the comment section tell us why you guys think
You
it's
might
offensive.
want to adjust the camera because our heads are cut off.
Yep, that's what I'm trying to do while I'm doing a
gotcha.
show, and I'm trying to produce and talk, and now my mouse is froze up completely, and I can't do anything. This is so much fun, guys.
This happens. This is what happens when you
Fucking
do
A.
live
Oh
shows.
my God.
If we slouch down like this, kind of do it lean back like this right here. And now it looks like I got a huge camel toe. Look at there.
Then we'll be stuck
on that
scene for the rest of the show.
Oh, we will. Okay. This is fun, folks. Hey, but you know what's fun about this? I get to watch Daniel stress out about it, and I'm over here just chilling with you guys. So what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Everybody had a good week. I had an excellent week. Now I'm just going to hang out this weekend and chill, and
Let's get a cord that's entirely too short to be doing this.
the next weekend I'm on my fishing trip with my buddies and going out of town for the weekend. And it's funny because I'm not going to be on social media. Actually, where we're going is I'm not going to have much service, so it's going to be kind of nice to kind of get away from everything and everybody. So, I mean, I like this whole slouching. Look at this. I can actually put my leg up here on the table too. Look. There you go. I can show y'all some skin.
No.
Look.
That is
Oh,
not
yeah.
happening.
Look at that. I got some nice legs, man. For almost 40 years old, look at them. Look at them legs. Look at that.
Not looking at your legs.
Man, they are sexy.
Not looking at your legs.
I'm turning myself on right now. Hey, I'm going to clip this up and put it over on Pornhub, so y'all be looking out for that one. What's wrong, dude?
All right. So, here's the deal.
What?
I'm getting frustrated. I
You know-
had to go to a corded mouse
Here's
because
the thing.
other one died. I don't have a good AA battery. Otherwise, we're stuck on this scene. Jesus. There's
just
always
gonna-
something in it. So now I'm going to try to do this way over here, trying to produce a show with this new setup, and I can't.
Dude,
I can't.
it's Friday.
It is Friday.
We're both off from
All right.
work. Just relax.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Just
I'm not tense.
woozah.
I'm not tense. I'm not stressed. It's just
You a
frustrated.
fucking liar, dude.
Frustrated.
You're frustrated.
There's a difference.
Come on, man.
All right, check it out. I'm going to tell you why you guys should be offended by this fucking telescope.
Yeah. He's going to be in a mood for the rest of the show, so y'all going to want to sit back and enjoy this one. We might even get some old dad jokes. Come on, Daniel.
No.
Give me some.
All right, so Erica Lynn's gonna go to. She's gonna go to the Pornhub account now. Yeah, you can find it. We actually.
Yeah, we are on Pornhub.
We're not kidding around. I actually made a. And if you guys want to like grab any segments from the show and send them to us that you like and want to see on Pornhub, look, hey, send them to us. We'll put them up there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here's one thing. One reason why telescopes are offensive. If guns kill people,
Yeah.
then by definition, and they definitely do kill people, by the way. Guns definitely kill people. And
Yeah,
I'm
they do.
saying this as a professional PHOBEISMIST, not as Daniel Wagner, the show host of Unframe of Mind,
Yeah.
but as a PHOBEISMIST.
PHOBEISMIST.
All right. If guns kill people, then according to PC 647I and PC 647J, also known as the Peeping Tom laws, looking glasses are perverts.
Well, sign me the fuck up then.
Yeah, they are. They are. And most are relatively harmless, but some are invading the privacy of others who are often trying to enjoy intimate moments alone or with others.
And I wonder why nobody wants me on their show. I don't think I'm too much for people, man.
You gotta like be more offended about things.
I gotta chill out a little
All right.
bit.
So
you know?
and on top of that, telescopes, and mainly like scopes that go on guns and stuff, they're
Yeah.
comrades of the guns in cooperation and
Comrades.
conspiracy to murder
Yeah.
animals and humans en masse.
Fuck yeah, sign me up.
You're not being a very good phobismist. You're supposed to be
No,
offended by
you're
these
supposed to
things.
be the social justice warrior.
No,
over
we
here.
are offended. This is our segment. That's how it works. Be offended by something, man.
I love you, Daniel.
Just pretend to care.
I love you, Bobby.
Pretend to care.
I care
You know, there's
about you.
people dying out
I
there.
care about you.
There's people dying out there because of scopes.
There's small children over in Ethiopia that are dying.
They are, and it's because of scopes. It's probably because of binoculars,
Yeah.
telescopes, looking glasses, binoculars, microscopes.
Yeah.
All of it. All of it's offensive. And then one thing is, I'm actually saddened by the lack of vagina-shaped telescopes. I really am.
Vagina. What?
Yeah, shapes. I mean, look. Every time
That was a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Say that fast 3 times.
I'm
Daniel,
saddened
please.
by the lack of vagina-shaped telescopes.
faster.
Vagina-shaped telescopes. Vagina-shaped telescopes. So everyone I could find on the internet was in the shape of a penis.
Yeah.
Please, folks, for the love of God, do not do a search for vagina-shaped telescopes. I've done the work for you. There's nothing there. There's no real telescopes that are shaped like vaginas. Okay. And that is why you should be fucking ashamed. No.
Ashamed?
Not ashamed. Offended. Offended by telescopes. And for those of you who are wondering, if you go over to urbandictionary.com and look up what a phobismist is, that's PHOBE.
PHOBEISMIST. PHOBEISMIST. PHOBEISMIST.
That's
Yes.
how you spell it.
That
That's
is
what
my
it means.
voice.
You look it up and you find out what a phobismist actually is. And you too, one day, could be your very own phobismist.
We are published on Urban Dictionary, believe it or not.
All
So
right.
that is now, yeah, we're legit.
I'm going
We've
back.
made a big time.
I'm going back to the old battery because at least it was struggling a little bit.
I'm enjoying this
But-
thoroughly, that you are struggling so bad this evening. Like Wednesday shows, we go on without a hitch.
Well, the
Tonight,
least,
you have
could,
just been
so
just
the least you could have done is
discombobulated.
had a AA battery in your pocket ready to go. As long as you've been in jail,
You're
I
the
know,
one that carries a pocket pussy, not me.
as long as you've been in jail, I know for a fact that that is one of the many items that you are capable of smuggling in.
well,
you showed me you showed me the process.
I did. I know. You came and visited me. You know, I did that. Oh, belly. You know, with my nipple kind of thing.
It was awkward, but it was fun.
It
That's
was still
the point.
fun. Yeah.
That's the point. So, does anybody like what do you think about the little table setup here we got? Is
Got a
that
table. Hey,
kinda cool?
you know, we're progressing.
I built this fucking thing myself.
It is. It is. Let me tell you something. If you ever see this in person, it'll give you a hard on. I did that. I just did that.
You notice
We need a rim shot, like
Anyway.
just a hotkey for rim shots.
I
That's
don't
all
know.
we
But
got to
I can't do this anymore today. I gotta go. I gotta go. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and head on to our first article of the day. So
Let's get serious. Come on.
Okay. So
Yeah,
there's
straight
a
up.
subject's come up, and it's come up time and time again, and this is something kind of a reoccurring issue, but it's just kind of highlighted here recently, and I want to see how you feel about it. And I'm gonna
Yeah.
try.
Throw me in. Hey, pull up the chat so we can say hi to folks.
All right. I'm gonna
Find
try
out
to turn
everybody's on
towards you a little
mind.
bit more. Where's my chats, folks? Where's my chats? So
There we go, right there.
all right, red room table maybe.
Red room.
Yeah, it's a great fucking table. Thank you, Charlene. I appreciate that. Oh,
Well, we got more people filtering in right now.
Puddin says,
Hey,
I'm not gonna keep telling you it looks good. Okay, I was just asking how it looks on the set.
I can
haven't-
hear her like yelling
I haven't
that
posted new pictures or
in
nothing.
an echo form.
All right, so there's a reoccurring issue that keeps coming up, and,
Okay.
and there's this idea, like we heard Alex Jones say it. That's his main
Okay.
like tagline for his show.
Right.
There's a war on for your minds,
Right.
and he brings up all these different things, all these different conspiracy theories, a number of which he does tend to be correct about, which is
That's it's not really scary. It's just like it makes you really stop and think. It
Yeah,
really does.
It does.
Yeah.
But I want to go one step further. I want to say that there's actually a war on for your child's minds because, in my opinion, the elites know that there's no changing the minds of an adult.
Right.
I mean, maybe a few you're going to convince, the ones that are already brainwashed, but everybody who's anybody in power knows the best way to control a population is to start by educating the children.
Yeah, that's true. But then again,
like having control over the education of the children.
well, my mind actually didn't change about things until I started doing the show with you 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and even then, back before I supported Trump, I supported Obama.
Right.
So I was very much I wouldn't say a liberal, but maybe an old-fashioned liberal, from years back, and none of this new progressive shit, okay? So, yeah, it wasn't too long ago that I was a big supporter of Obama, believe
So
it or not.
what you've got
So-
is this rare ability to actually change your mind in light of new evidence. Okay, What you have is a rare ability. I mean, if you've interacted with anybody online, you know.
No, and I know that.
Most people will, once you reach a certain age, you're kind of cemented into your beliefs.
And I'm almost 40, so.
And the older you get, people tend to, I'm just talking about general trends now, tend to be cemented into their beliefs.
Right.
And it's even become a trope. The old man that's like set in his beliefs, he'll never change. The old racist guy down the, he's just old Uncle Philip down the road. He's been a racist since 1972. He'll never change. We all know this trope, right? So I guess what I wanted to do is bring up a number of examples of this, not only just from recent current events, but also just examples that we've seen kind of slowly creeping in over a period of over 50 years.
Right.
And it's just this idea that the more we can kind of get our hooks into what we teach, the curriculum that's taught to kids, or the more we can separate the child from the family, the more we can get both parents out working, so the kids are in the clutches of the state or what have you.
Right.
It's not like an outspoken, hey, here it is, this is what we're doing. Like that would people would revolt on that immediately.
Yeah.
But it's just like with taxes and with all these other impedance on our freedoms. It's little by little.
How much further can you get your hand in that cookie jar?
Yeah, it's that
boiled it's like
frog.
You're reaching for the bottom, but you're not quite there. But you just want to see how much further you can go into that cookie jar before you get caught.
Yeah, it's the whole analogy of the boiled crab or the boiled frog.
Yeah.
You put them in a pot of water and you turn up the heat slowly, and over time, as long as you increase the heat slowly, they won't move. They'll just cook them. They'll just let themselves get cooked to death.
Yeah.
But if you turn it up too fast and there's too much of a change too quick, they respond to it, they jump, they're out. That's what people do. People are very similar in that. And that's why you see a lot of laws. They will try to take 2 steps forward, and then when people get pissed off, they'll take a step back. And then they'll encroach a little more, and they'll keep encroaching until the point it gets so ridiculous, people get up in an uproar about it, and then they'll pull back a little bit. It's never pulled back.
But you know what we've learned, though, especially back when we did the WikiLeaks stories, back almost 2 years ago. The one thing I want to explain to people is that when we were doing a lot of research, or I was doing a lot of research on WikiLeaks, it's the fact that Julian Assange, he really brought to light what politicians were doing, and not so much in the U.S., but just abroad. And it really just highlighted the fact that our politicians never had the best interest for their people at all. It doesn't matter what country you're speaking of.
Right.
And now that we have the capabilities of doing our own research and thinking for ourselves and not having the media tell us what to believe, you're starting to see that separation between, the people and the media.
And you're starting to see the powerful, the elites, the media starting to kind of worry.
Yeah.
And you're hearing it starting to be vocalized more and more.
Right.
And we'll get into that later on today as far as teachers vocalizing this exact concern. So I wanted to start with, I want to start with the social distancing. There was an article I was reading talking about children have a 0% chance. Let me make sure I hit the right button. Yes, that's the one. Number 5.
IQ 5.
Mumbo, number 5. So, children have a 0%
3,
chance
4,
of dying from COVID, but are harmed for life by social distancing, which has its roots in CIA torture techniques. Now, I don't know if you've gone through and read the article, but it's actually a pretty good read. I posted it in. Now I don't. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Do your own research. I don't know that I'm buying all of it or nothing like that, but it does make some pretty interesting points. And one of them is they're talking about. I want to find what. See, I highlight things on these pages so I can see them, and I hope it kept it.
I don't think it did it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a long article, but well worth the read.
Do you kind of remember the gist of this?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I can actually go Control Find on it. Oop, I can go Control Find on it and type in a little bit of what I'm getting ready to say. That's why I copy and paste the quotes on my notes. There it is. Okay, so in addition to social isolation, life-shortening span, and more than doubling the risk of early death, while also creating obesity, cardiovascular, and other major physical impairments, which, to point a very fine point on it, prove that TUSD would be better off feeding their school children 15 cigarettes a day or handing them a shot of vodka at the start of each period than attempting to keep them socially distanced. There are also profound, debilitating, and often fatal psychological effects from attempting to keep developing children distant from each other. Again, I'm not going to go ahead and read the full article for you. I will try to go back and make sure I get all of these articles linked in the descriptions so you can research them yourself. But the basic gist of it is that there's actually psychological effects that happen when you socially distance kids.
Yeah.
They kind of need that
structure,
and
development. Yeah.
Like people in general need that, but especially children kind of need that social interaction. They kind of it teaches them how to interact in the world and how
teach them skills to interact and just how to behave and how to respect one another. And I understand.
I'm sitting here picturing like when you have months upon months of social isolation or quarantining.
Right.
What happens with those relationships with the parents and the children who don't maybe spend as much time with the way we spend with our kids? What are those kids doing that whole time? They're not able to go see their friends. They're kind of sitting in their room. They're probably on their phone devices, and it's crippling their social skills.
It is.
Big time.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, it even goes so far, you think about it, the number one concern people have with homeschooling is that the kids won't be socialized properly. Right? Now, that's kind of that's a responsibility of the parents. If you do actually homeschool your kids, you need to make sure as part of your homeschooling adventures that you hook up with other homeschooling families or other students or other activities to get those social interactions so that your kid can kind of be well-rounded and well-developed. Now, what they were talking about in this article is like actually one of the most powerful CIA torture tactics was social isolation.
Yep.
And a matter of fact, it's like what the biggest punishment you can get is being put in a hole when you're in jail. I mean, how many times did they put you in the hole since you've been in Facebook jail?
Just twice.
And it fucking sucks, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So that's kind of the gist
I
of that.
start daydreaming, and I start to I start having these thoughts in my head, and it's just not a safe place to be. It's not a safe space.
I totally get it, man. I totally get it.
No, and that's a concern, and this also kind of falls in line to what we're going to discuss a little later. But the thing that I want people to understand too is that this is something we've never really kind of had to experience before. With this whole COVID thing, and then the social distancing, and I was reading an article here in Nashville, if anybody's familiar with this, but now they're talking. Mayor Lee was discussing about how they're going to mandate mask until 2023. I kid you not. This was an article that was released yesterday talking about they were going to mandate this, and that if you didn't comply, that it was a Class C misdemeanor if you were caught not wearing a mask in Davison County, Nashville, Tennessee. So. Yeah, I mean, this is just like we said at the beginning of the show, or not the beginning, but the beginning of this conversation is, how much is the government going to try to stick their hand in that little cookie jar before they get it to the bottom and see how far they can go without getting caught?
Right.
And,
or
you're pushing
pissed off, like.
Dude, and that's what, I don't know, it's almost like you wonder if government officials are really wanting that. I'm almost starting to think they want us to get to that point.
Yep.
I mean, look at Seattle. Seattle and Portland is just a shithole. I mean, this is
Detroit, Chicago,
Baltimore. I mean, it's
Los Angeles.
It's getting bad,
all right,
man.
One more little clip from this article before we move on to the next one. It's talking about all the effects of social isolation on students. They say already we are seeing. I'm sorry, this is from humansarefree.com for those listening in the podcast. Already we're seeing the effects of just a few weeks of social isolation on students. Teen suicides have risen. And last week, OC sheriffs reported a 25% increase in domestic violence calls, a 24% increase in family disputes, and a 30% increase in child custody calls. So delirious are these effects that in recent years, the United Nations promulgated that what have come to be called the Mandela Rules. And these rules prohibit social isolation for longer than 15 days, noting that any longer period of social isolation, quote, constitutes cruel, degrading, and inhuman treatment or torture, end quote. Yeah.
Well, and this kind of goes back to the welfare checks that they're wanting to implement with kids going back to school. Doing the whole online thing. But we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yeah. So Becky says I like my cookies. Jessica says from YouTube says, "Wow, that is dumb as fuck." I think she's talking about us personally. I take offense to that.
I got to straighten this
Jessica.
out, man. Y'all got to know what I'm in Facebook jail for.
That's right.
Violating Facebook community standards
Yep,
is
that's
a
right.
bitch. I tell you what.
It is a bitch.
I tell you what, man. Next Thursday, we have our interview. How do you say his last name?
Hey, we're gonna have the interview. We're not doing it live.
No, I know that.
Bill Ottman.
Yeah, Bill. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I cannot wait to touch on with him is to find out, kind of their community standards, if they even have any. Let's
Right.
kind of talk about that. So,
All right, yeah, we'll get to that. So the second point I wanted to cover, we after last week's show Wednesday, we started talking about this. It was a video that came out about the possible psychological effects of taking those temperature guns and pointing them at students' heads.
Oh yeah.
And after that, this was during our Zoom call after the show. We talked on that subject for probably the whole time, basically, just trying to throw around ideas, and it was an interesting concept. It was for those of you who don't know, the basic idea was there's a concern that pointing a gun-shaped object at a student's forehead and pulling the trigger, like an authority figure pulling the trigger and pointing it at a student's head, could have some kind of psychological effects.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm buying that or not just yet, but it was an interesting line of inquiry. So I traveled down that road a little bit and I started asking around.
Went down that rabbit hole.
I went down, not so much a rabbit hole, but talking to other psychiatrists. I found out I actually need to talk to a sociologist. Would be more.
Do you need help?
Yes.
Yeah, I love you.
I need to talk to a sociologist personally, but a sociologist would be more apt to or equipped to answer that kind of question.
Right.
But I don't know what this stuff is. I went to ask a few psychologists, and most of them were saying, yeah, maybe there could be. One of them even answered it in such a way that was just kind of assuming that I was suggesting we don't measure their temperatures, which I don't think we should.
But did you explain to them that you can actually still point it at the wrist and still get the similar
that was
reading?
in my response. But when he answered it in such a way that was like assuming I was saying, well, I think what he basically said was something along the lines of, well, if there might be small psychological effects, but it's nothing compared to the psychological effects if they knew that they came to school and spread COVID-19 and killed their grandpa or killed their dad. Like, that was the kind of answer I got. I'm like, I didn't ask none of that.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, I get what you're saying.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know why everybody wants to look at these things automatically through these, divisive lenses, this political divide. And it's like, dude, I was just asking, because there are other ways you can measure temperature. You can point at the wrist. You can point at the inner elbow. You can stick a thermometer up their ass. I don't care. Just pointing at the gun just kind of seems a little... I don't know. I don't know. It may be completely nothing. Yeah. But I just, what do you guys think about that? Is that something that if you know a psychologist or you know a sociologist, throw the question at them. I'd be curious to know if there is something that might be going on a more subconscious level there.
But that's the purpose of our show, is to get people to think about things you typically wouldn't necessarily think of, such as this. And it's not to cause any kind of uproar, or this is just wants you to keep, your senses kind of heightened a little bit, and just kind of maybe think about it.
Think about things in a slightly different way. And that was exactly what it did for me when it came up. It didn't even cross my mind, but now that it's brought up, I'm looking at it, I'm going, that is interesting. I wonder. Right. It's all it is. I don't, like I said, I'm not buying it one way or the other, but I am wondering.
But it makes you it just gets your wheels turning in your brain.
But if you take that from a standpoint of what this show's about this war on for your child's mind, think about if I'm like an evil dictator in control of everything, and I'm not saying that this is what's going on. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, but what are some subtle ways you could kind of start incorporating this kind of normalization of an authority figure pointing a gun at your head? Like, that's just kind of how we do things,
Well, I mean, think about it. If we came and sat down in these chairs once a week for the next 9 weeks in front of our audience, and I'm checking your temperature, and I'm holding it like a gun, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I go to pull that trigger.
See, even that kind of makes me feel a little like, I don't know, man.
But people seeing it, people watching that,
and
correlate that to be the same kind of distinction as to what you would do with a gun.
Yeah, and my parents always taught me as a kid, don't point guns at people.
Right.
Even if it's a play gun, they didn't want me pointing it at people, which didn't make any sense to me because how am I supposed to hit the motherfucker with the Nerf dart if I can't point it at him? Right. But you get the idea. The idea is, it's kind of a safety thing. It's like you just get in a habit of not pointing guns at people. I know this is, I might be completely crazy on this.
No, it's not that you're crazy. This is just to get people to think differently. And that's the purpose of the show. But if you have to understand it, and kind of what we were discussing during the Zoom call is that if a little child, I don't know, maybe the age of 5 or 6, happens to see this 5 days a week in school, that's the first thing they see when they go to school for the next 9 weeks. Wow. Dude, that's a lot. That is a lot of that similar repetitive behavior. That what if they go home and find mommy or daddy's gun and they think, oh, I need to check your temperature, sister. Come here. And then brings the gun over, pulls the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, there could be.
I'm not saying it could happen.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that's the potential that it could go.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And, and it's not to alarm people. It's just saying that there are some similarities. Not saying it's going to happen, so don't misquote us here. It's just to give you something to think about than what most people aren't talking about, so to speak. So,
all right.
We got going in the chats.
We weren't even allowed to have toy guns. Guns are not toys, right? Erica says, Beard should have dressed for the occasion. He's all uncomfortable.
He's all uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable?
You should have seen when he came up for visitations.
My name? I have a name, Fuck people.
It'd be all right.
Yeah, maybe we need to label our names behind us and make,
No, they know who we are by now. So.
Breaking my heart right now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next potential point. Another way that there's a war on for your child's mind, and that is this this kind of rewriting history or removing it altogether.
Okay.
You've seen a number of kind of, you look at newer textbooks and you see how all the history has been rewritten.
Right.
And let me bring up that over here. Let me see. All right. So from the American Spectator, I hit the button. When I hit number 5, your keyboard, you're supposed to switch over. Are you serious right now? Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So every book rewritten, Chicago wants to cancel history classes, right? Oh, I see what happens. When I reboot the computer, it removes my highlights I already had. That sucks.
Yeah.
So State Rep LaShawn K. Ford of Chicago assembled with local leaders on Sunday to pressure the Illinois State Board of Education to cease teaching history classes and remove history books and curricula in public schools. I'm going to interject here and say, first of all, I'm a big fan of that.
Oh, I'd love history. Big fan of removing history.
Of removing any kind of excuse for governments to try to plug their narrative into our children.
But, I mean, you still want history to be taught, though, correct?
I am a big fan of homeschooling first.
So you don't think that history should be taught in public school?
Public school or private schooling as a second option, public schooling only as a last resort.
Well, you didn't answer my question, though.
I'm not a fan of public schools teaching history because they are completely biased.
So how do you expect anybody to learn about our history?
It can be taught other ways. I've learned no history in school.
Really?
I learned it. I don't remember it. I was taught to memorize dates, facts, figures, statistics. Right. But I didn't start learning history until I started actually giving a shit about it and started learning it on my own.
Right.
Case in point, if anybody's ever listened to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, for example, that is some of the most fascinating storytelling. The way he tells the story from a macro and the micro, actually backs it all up with research and actually make sure he crosses his T's and dots his I's. That dude has got the best podcast I've ever listened to in my life. History is fucking boring in school. I'm sorry. And not only that, but if you have the United States teaching government about the United States, and that's primarily what they teach is U.S. history.
Right.
Like what incentive does the U.S. have to teach public school students the real history of the United States? Especially the bad stuff, the seedy stuff, the stuff you don't want people to know. Does that make sense?
But that's the thing about history. History of any kind is ugly. It's not all rainbows and butterflies and Skittles.
Well, we know that growing up, but we didn't learn that in school. I mean, we
Maybe
learned about the biggest one, the one that where they're trying to take the narrative over about the slavery issue.
You learn about
Pearl
Harbor.
And then they turn around and
about
bat us over the head with it for the rest of our lives.
Okay.
But as far as I'm just talking about incentives. Think about this.
See, I guess it's where I would have to disagree with you. I think there needs to be more history taught in school.
Not in public. See, I'm trying to differentiate between.
No, I
public
understand
school
that
and
you
private
are.
school.
Right.
Private school, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Because they're not operated by the very entity that's trying to teach you about themselves.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's not
No,
like
I know,
it's
I
not like
understand
I'm
what you're
going
saying.
to a private school and learning the history of that private school.
Right.
Which, of course, they're going to have a little bit of a leaning, a bias toward positive stories about their school, right? They're not going to necessarily teach you about the pedophile they had back in the 9th grade, or they're not going to teach you that history.
Right.
They're going to teach you, when we took out the state champions over here, that's the kind of shit. And the same thing with government. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Yeah, I'm not saying we don't teach, but I'm just saying the public school model is, and I'll get into that later, is completely.
No, I agree with
completely
you.
wrong.
I
the entire
agree.
business model is wrong.
Yes, I agree with you that. But to actually do away with history, even if it's on the public foundation in which we're teaching our children from, no, I disagree. I think that every whether it's homeschool, whether it's private or public, I think there needs to be more history taught.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree history needs to be taught to kids.
Right.
I'm sorry. I agree that children should learn history.
Right.
I just want to be careful about the way I word this.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that children should learn history and should learn lots of it
Right.
at their own pace when they're ready to learn it, when they give a shit about it, you know?
Right.
And a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think public schools, the United States government, should be teaching U.S. history. That's what I don't think.
Mm.
I just want to make sure I got that clear.
Okay.
All right, so let's continue here. So that was I want to continue with that particular quote, what he was saying. Back to that, I'll just start over here. State Representative LaShawn K. Ford of Chicago assembled with local leaders on Sunday to pressure the Illinois State Board of Education to cease teaching history classes and remove history books and curricula in public schools, citing historical practices that have supposedly overlooked minority contributions to this country. Ford and his allies want to abolish all history classes until a suitable alternative is developed, according to a statement from his office.
Well,
So
first of all,
that's where I have a problem.
and I have a problem with that too, because you can't cater everyone. You're not going to give the history lesson in the way that this teacher over here teaches it, or the way they're taught to teach it. And if it doesn't fit the education in which it ought to be taught over here versus what you want taught, this is interesting, because it's like, okay, look, how are you wanting to teach history? Because if it's going to be done, it needs to be done across the board, kind of on an equal, platform.
and even that's a problem insofar as most students. First of all, you cannot have a one-size-fits-all packaging for all students at all times.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Different students, and our friend, Becky, she teaches children, and what she was saying, she teaches to the deficit,
Right.
SPED kids, where and they learn at different rates. Well, I think all kids are like that, not just the SPED kids.
Yeah.
All the kids are going to learn at different rates and give a shit at different rates.
See, for me, back when I was in school, I loved history. Was I the kind of kid that really kind of absorbed all of it? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later, I kind of remember bits and pieces of it. But then I was always intrigued by history. So anytime I travel, I try to learn a little bit about our U.S. history. So
Well, probably for me, for example, I'm fascinated with medieval history,
Right.
specifically. Some people are fascinated with U.S. history. Some people are fascinated with Victorian era England, or some people are fascinated
Yeah.
with world discovery and geography.
World War I,
This
World
is
War
this is
II,
why
D-Day,
this is why
Pearl Harbor.
I hugely advocate for homeschooling first.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way you can actually, and even some kind of like private school scenarios have much smaller class sizes. They can focus on what the student wants, and an individualized curriculum for each student,
Right.
based on where they're at, what they want to learn, what they need to learn, where their deficits are.
Okay, so say if you homeschool, do you think you could be a little bit biased when it comes to U.S. history?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
dangerous.
I wouldn't say it's dangerous, because you're getting, what you're doing is kind of decentralizing the education here.
Okay.
You're making it where, yes, you might have a few people that are teaching some completely bonkers version of the U.S. history in terms of, the white supremacist was this and that and great. They might say something like that, but that's going to be few and far between. I'm trying to make my point as I go here, but
No, I get
basically,
what you're saying,
instead of
yeah.
having one size fits all, okay, here you go, this is the narrative, this is the story, and we're going to call this facts. Don't be questioning it. You just answer that question on the test the way I told you to answer it on the test, and don't be doing your own research necessarily.
Sometimes I feel like when you teach history, you're kind of teaching children how to point that finger in the other direction. Meaning that if you're being biased about how you're teaching history,
Mm-hmm.
and say if you're a black individual and you're talking about the white man or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
To me that kind of gives off that impression that you're not really supposed to really like the white people because of what they did to our people, and and it could be done vice versa, whether you're,
That's
Jewish
being
or,
done anyway.
I understand that. So it's like,
that's
well,
you look everywhere. That's being done right now.
but I
en
go a little
masse.
bit deeper.
Imagine if it was only isolated to certain families.
No, I understand that.
You know?
Well, yes, but again, it goes back to when you said homeschooling, it goes back to how you're raised
Right.
and how you see people and see things. So I don't know, man. It's just I'm thinking a little bit further into this than I should, but then it does kind of bring some valid points. I mean, this is where early on racism can play a factor if homeschooling and teaching history is a little biased. And people will not agree with me on that, but I actually feel that way. I do.
No, I get it. Erica from YouTube, she says, I have discovered that Tennessee doesn't exactly have the most wealthy communities, and that could play into why he feels that way. We have very small class sizes, and we have wonderful teachers. And I will tell you what, I don't want anybody to get the impression that I am talking about teachers in this. I'm talking about this top-down.
The system
I'm
itself.
talking about the system itself.
Yeah.
I hate the word systemic, but I'm talking about the people in power who make the decisions about what is going to be taught, what must be taught, putting the questions on the test, and what the students must be taught to that test. That is a terrible business model for actually educating students. It is a terrible business model. I mean, there's so many incentives for the powerful to go ahead and just say, okay, well, this is what we're teaching. We're going to go ahead and ignore all this other stuff that probably makes us look really bad.
So, okay, I mean, I know that you're a big fan of homeschooling, but outside of that, if that's not an option, what would be a solution?
Yeah, I already laid that out. I would say homeschooling, number one,
private
if you can.
than public, yeah.
Private as an alternative option, and that could come in so many different shades. I'm sorry. Of course, I'm an anarchist. First of all, just to be clear about that. But I'm never going to think that the government is the best solution.
Right.
I've seen way too many examples of the government doing achieving the exact opposite goal that they set out to achieve.
Right.
The war on drugs. We now have more drugs than ever. You can't even keep them out of prisons. The war on poverty. Now we've got more poor people than ever before.
Yeah.
I can't help but think, and it seems like the education system is completely collapsing little by little, and it's not showing any signs of getting any better.
It's not. So again, what do we do?
You put it in the hands of private market entities. People that will actually teach the end customer would be the students. That's the one. That's the person you're trying. That's the one. The consumer of your product is your students. And if you can focus on, okay, I am a teacher of math. This is my student. I'm getting paid by the parents. That's it. Keep it simple.
Do you think that history ought to be taught when kids are a lot older?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't know that any 7-year-old's going to give a shit about world history necessarily.
What age group? Would you
I have
think
no
that'd
idea
be
what age they start actually teaching it.
No. I'm saying I'm asking you. What do you think would be a good age to start?
Oh, I don't see. That's just it.
Teaching people
There's no
history.
such thing as a good age to start teaching
You don't
history.
think so?
No such thing.
No.
Because, as I said before, students start learning at different levels. They start
Right.
caring about these topics.
Well, I was just
at different
asking
levels.
you, your opinion.
And that would be
of what
that would be from a mindset of somebody trying to kind of pick that one size fits all age. Okay, I'm going to say 10.
No. I mean, as you as a parent, you as an individual.
Me as a parent, see my kids. And I'm not trying to brag on my kids, are a lot smarter than most of the kids that are in this area.
Right.
I've seen the.
No, I would
difference.
actually agree with
And
you on that.
My kids.
Your son has got a very high IQ level.
My kids would be ready for this stuff well before anybody
Yes,
else.
yes.
They just are. And so what happens is they're going to these classes and they're kind of bored and they're on their phones all day. They're finishing the curriculum way too quickly. I've heard a number of homeschoolers talk about, okay, we do school for 2 hours a day.
Right.
And our kids learn way more than the public schools can teach them, because you've got public school teachers that are going and trying to put on all these different hats. They're supposed to be counselor and parents and food and all these different hats. And to every single, like I'm trying to think when I said it, I think it was during one of the Zoom calls. Every hat that gets put on by a teacher is that much more teaching they're not doing.
Right.
Like I would prefer that teacher be able to take a kid and focus on that kid or that group of 5 kids or what have you. And it's just not going to happen in the current model we have.
Right.
Because the incentive is not to teach the kids. The incentive is to make sure the kids achieve a certain score so the school can keep getting money from the government.
Well, I mean, I know that we're discussing what I guess the downfall of the system is, but then I kind of go back to, okay, well, then how do we start to fix this? Is my thought on this. It's like we've got to have some jumping off point to
I
get
think
us
we're already
back into
seeing.
a
I
position
think we might be
where,
seeing the jumping off point right now, as a matter of fact, because from what I'm hearing, and I could be completely wrong on this, there is, I want to say it was around 10%, a pretty high percentage of parents, not willing or not capable or wanting to deal with this COVID-19 situation.
Yeah.
And seeing how ridiculous it is when their students are going back, they're taking their kids out and they're finding alternatives.
Yep.
Like the collapse may be already happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's a much better way of teaching kids, especially, before the public education system, how did kids learn?
Well, I think
There's some pretty freaking smart people in history. You look back and you see
I know.
pretty well. I'm not saying it was across the board, but I'm saying there was a different model.
Right.
A kid would grow up looking up to their adults. They would spend a lot of time with their elders.
Mm-hmm.
You'd learn to have a lot of respect, and you'd learn to actually build off of what your elders are trying to teach you, because you weren't going to school and trying to, I don't know. It's a different world, different business model.
I think,
If you're going to teach students, the incentives need to be for that student to actually learn, or that student to actually succeed where the student wants to succeed. The parents want, to kind of like find that happy middle ground between what the teacher can do, what the parents want, and what the students can, are old enough and capable enough of handling.
I think what this whole COVID thing is teaching us is that we are finding other ways to be able to teach our children than we ever thought before.
Yeah.
Nobody ever would have thought maybe 2 years ago that the virtual learning thing was even considered an option for any of us. Now it is. So say let's, okay, kids are out of school for, I don't know, a week because of snow days. Because here in Tennessee, you can get just a couple of flurries and, they cancel school.
Right.
So what's not to say that, okay, next week we're, or during summer break, we're going to make this, day up and do Zoom call, virtual classroom learning. So I think as this moves forward, it's giving parents, and it's also giving, the public schools, private schools, to look at this from a bigger perspective, saying, hey, we might actually be able to do more with this. We may be able to do away with snow days. They can go and say, okay, well, there's a chance that it might snow, so we're going to require everybody to stay home and do their virtual learning. What's not to say that's not going to happen.
Right.
I'm just saying this is starting to expose also how bad we have when it comes to a lot of teachers within the system, especially in college. You're a lot of liberal leaning, professors. And, a lot of them already offer online courses. But then I'm also thinking too, man, it's like our public schools from kindergarten all the way up to fourth grade, are those teachers pretty progressive, and makes me kind of wonder, because a lot of us aren't sitting in on schools, during those hours to find out what all's being taught and how it's being taught. So this is getting interesting.
Well, and we will get to that as well. Sorry, guys, the show's going to run a little bit longer than normal because we got a lot to cover here, but it's all pretty important shit. Yeah. So, we could divide it up in between a couple shows, or we can go ahead and keep on going. I'm cool with keeping on going.
If you guys want to hang out with us tonight, we're going to keep chugging along. I don't have work tonight, thank God. The Wednesday night shows, I had to be off within the hour, and then I had to get home and get ready for work. But now, not tonight.
One of the other questions that I was asking.
Hang with us. Light a candle.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, Becky, hanging out in the comments. She says, sorry, public schools can be a vital part of society. It's my calling, and we are important. Yes, I agree. You are 100% important. We definitely need we need teachers. We absolutely.
Cook is here. Yeah. Erica is here. Little Ragmuffin is here.
We definitely need teachers, though. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just talking about the model itself needs to change. Not the fact, like education of students needed. Kids need to learn some shit.
Yeah, I know.
That's not what I'm trying to attack here. What I'm attacking is the business model. Anyway,
you keep reiterating.
I know, but I feel like she still feels a little bit personally attacked.
But you have to understand, she's coming at this from a teacher's lens, which is something we don't see through at all.
Yeah.
And I understand that when you've got 21 years of experience worth of teaching, I would hate to be kind of lumped into that whole system too. When when I'm trying to be the best teacher possible.
Yeah, but the thing is, even in a free society without the state, teachers will still be there.
I know.
So, do that. If it's your calling, do that in whatever capacity you can. I feel like I kind of have a natural teaching ability, too. That's why I'm doing this. Is I'm doing it in a different way.
But you have a lot of parents that come down on teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Like you have a lot of people that
and that's
we just held hands again.
So,
you guys are sweaty and kind of moist.
Well, the middle of them are for sure. You want that? So, yeah, the teaching profession is going to be around. No
you lost your train of thought. Go ahead.
I did. Yeah, the teaching profession, 100%. Teach in any way possible you can. If that's your calling, do that. Absolutely do that. I have zero problems with that.
But this is like the attacks that we have on the police. We have one guy, or we have a small group of people that work in the police department, and then it kind of put a black eye on the whole system itself.
Again, same thing.
Same with teachers.
The incentives are all wrong.
I know. I'm just kind of pointing out it's everywhere you go, So, and I hate that for teachers, man, because you do have a lot of them that really
and if any of you assholes are calling up your teachers and bitching about your students' education to your teachers, unless there better be some damn good evidence that teacher is a piece of shit before you start calling them, because it's not their fault. Yeah. It's not their fault. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're told they have to do. Yeah. Some of them
they're kind of like that rock in a hard place.
Some of them are even trying to subvert the system in any which way they can, in little ways here and there. Some of them are buying it hook, line, and sinker, and they're teaching their kids to the curriculum, no matter what. And some
of them are pretty progressive.
Some of them are pretty fucking progressive. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so
moving on.
Let's move on here.
Segue.
Yes. Now, there was something else that I was wanting to. Yeah. It's something I've always wondered is why do students have such, like kids? Have you ever noticed this? They have such a negative association with learning or education. If a kid hears those words,
it's boring.
How many times have you seen a kid kind of act kind of?
I don't want to do this.
like I mentioned my son learning something. And he's like, I don't want to learn. That's for school. I already do enough learning in school. I don't want to do that. And he has this negative aversion to the idea of learning something. He's got it all wrong. And I mean,
that's weird.
Well, when what it is, and I'm not saying it's just my son, but I've noticed this even when I was in school or from other kids. Just the mere mention of education or learning, they kind of have this negative reaction to it, this negative association with it.
Right.
And I started looking into it, actually, and this is kind of interesting. I mean, and I feel what this writer's saying, but this is actually from Psychology Today. He says that basically, in short, the school is a prison. Okay? And he says, if you think the school is not a prison, please explain the difference. And I've heard this argument before. That's funny that this is kind of, it's like this everything's working out so well. So he says, quote, the only difference I can think of is that to get into prison, you have to commit a crime, but they put you in school just because of your age. In other respects, school and prison are the same. In both places, you are stripped of your freedom and dignity. You are told exactly what you must do and are punished for you are punished for failing to comply. Actually, in school, you must spend more time doing exactly what you were told to do than is true in adult prisons. So, in that sense, school is worse than prison. At some level, their consciousness, everyone who has ever been to school knows that it is a prison. How could they not know? But people rationalize it by saying, not usually in these words, that children need this particular kind of prison, and they may even like it if the prison is run well. If children don't like school, according to this rationalization, it's not because school is prison, but is because the wardens are not kind enough or amusing enough or smart enough to keep the children's minds occupied appropriately. But anyone who knows anything about children and who also allows himself or herself to think honestly should be able to see through this rationalization. Children, like all human beings, crave freedom. They hate to have their freedom restricted. To a large extent, they use their freedom precisely to educate themselves. They are biologically prepared to do that. That's what many of my previous posts have been about. So that's what I want to grab. Children explore and play freely in ways designed to learn about the physical and social world in which they are developing. In school, they're told they must stop following their interests and instead do just what the teacher is telling them they must do. That is why they don't like school.
Man, I kind of agree with that, but then I don't.
So what comes to mind when you hear that?
To me, it just seems like we're forcing children to. We're doing the thinking for them. We're doing what we want them to do and what they want to learn and and educate and so forth. But then on the other side of that too is I'm like, No, man, they have this mentality, like they have this imagination to them, and hell, we were kids once, and we want to explore. That's the biggest thing about children. I think people have forgotten. Kids love to explore.
They are
You're
they
not
naturally,
exploring
They
anything
naturally
in
love
school.
to learn. Here's the problem: they naturally love to learn.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is exploring is learning.
Right,
And
right.
if you've ever looked at our history, funny enough and ironic I say that, is that you look at most of everything we've done, we've been explorers. And we love it because we're searching for things that we never knew anything about.
Yeah.
And when we learn those things, we really apply ourselves.
Yeah, we're
and
always
just,
questioning.
Always questioning.
Right.
We have stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And when I say exploring, and I kind of reference that in the sense of we have stopped doing our research when it comes to the media, when it comes to articles. We're so dependent on reading just the headline that we don't actually dive into it, or we expect other people to read it for us and then kind of give us the breakdown. But then if we don't agree with it, it's like we still don't take the time to explore and research what it is that we should. So I don't know, man. You're kind of getting away from letting kids be themselves and let them be creative.
I've heard of this concept. I think it's called Montessori schools or something like that. That's a lot more open. If I remember right, you might look into it a little more. It's more open-ended.
Right.
I think it's a private school type scenario, but it's a lot more open-ended where the kids have a lot more control over the curriculum and what they're learning and when they're learning it, and they're allowed to explore those things.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowed to develop at their own pace.
Yeah.
And I've heard about this quite a few times, and I really like the concept of it. And it kind of brings back that sense of wonder, that sense of exploration and stuff like that. Versus, if you think about public school, how much control does a student actually have over the curriculum they're taught?
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
they have a pretty much a set of guidelines. They have to learn a certain amount of things by the end of the year,
Right.
and they have to pass this test. And if they don't pass the test, they don't go to the next grade
They
or
have
what
to
have
have
you.
this quota of scores.
Right, and some students just aren't ready for that. Some students don't give a crap about any of it, and they're not going to remember. They're only just learning because they're told that's what they have to learn, and they're just and they stress about it, and they, some students struggle with it because they're not ready, and they're going through all this extra time spent on homework and everything else. Which there's actually been a lot of studies that show that homework does absolutely nothing for the students.
Right.
Matter of fact, it actually just adds extra stress to the household and causes a rift between family members.
Right.
It's pretty messed up. So teachers, stop giving your kids homework. They don't benefit from it whatsoever.
Yeah.
They just don't.
It stresses everybody out.
It seems like a good idea on the surface, but it's not doing anything for them.
I can, and kind of getting off subject, but I was thinking about this, man. I can remember back when I was a kid. Now, mind you, this was back before social media. When we as kids we wanted to go outside. We wanted to be with our friends. And we wanted to go down to the creek, and we wanted to go play in the woods and ride our bikes. And,
Good Lord,
these
you couldn't keep me off my bike.
Right. So my point is like I can remember me and my buddies. A lot of the parents back then called us like the Rat Pack, and we were the six of us. Back when we were kids, we all ran together, and we always went down through the creek and catching crawdads, frogs, turtles, whatever it was we can get our hands on. But we were constantly exploring. We were constantly doing things that intrigued us. Mm-hmm. And I can remember back when we were in school how much we talked about how we couldn't wait for the summer to get here. Well, the reasons why, now that I'm thinking about this, is we couldn't wait for the summer to get here because we had the ability to do what we wanted to do and explore and learn things that were not being taught in the classroom. Mm-hmm. I used to do a lot of hunting, and obviously I've been doing a lot of fishing, and I've done that throughout my life, but those are things I like. It's a skill. It's a technique to it. It's nothing that you're taught in school, and then I also got to thinking, too, I was like, okay, well, as a kid, I used to be like this little explorer, and now now that I'm thinking about it, look how much I travel. Like, I wanted to go see Niagara Falls. I plan on going to see the Redwoods next year. I've been to the Grand Canyon as of, a month ago. Right. And, I've seen the hieroglyphics that, I've seen. Huh?
Bastard.
Yeah, well, it's just.
I want to go so bad.
You will. But, to study the hieroglyphics of Indians and.
Let me grab this comment. Becky, thank you for that. She pointed out, she said that Montessori, she taught at Montessori. She said it's amazing. I teach that way. Montessori started as a special needs school by Maria Montessori for
That's in California, yeah.
For throwaway sped kids.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that, but the model makes a lot more sense because you're actually teaching kids, I think, the right way, or a lot closer to the right way, whatever that even is.
Yeah. So no, I was just kind of touching base on, as I've gotten older, I'm still like that kid at heart where I want to explore things. I've been to Charleston, North Carolina, and I've gone out to, Fort Sumter, which is where the first shot of the Civil War took place. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And these are all things that, as I've gotten older, I wanted to learn. But that all goes back to me being a child, of things that I wasn't really kind of given the capabilities of wanting to explore and research. Yeah. And now I'm older, I have the abilities to do that. I have, it's just like when you go to the Andrew Jackson home.
And the desire.
Yeah, God, I love history. And to go to Andrew Jackson's home, and a lot of people are like, well, he was a huge racist. Yeah, he was a huge racist. But, when you go there, you're learning something that you didn't know anything about.
Right.
And that's very essential for our minds, especially as we get older, because we want to teach our kids, hey, this was a bad time in life, in our society where, Andrew Jackson had a bunch of slaves, and we teach our children, okay, this wasn't a good thing, but this is how far we've come. Mm-hmm. And we give them the proper tools to understand, okay, well, moving forward, this is what you don't do. This is something you don't want to continue on doing, because if you do, you're bound to repeat those same, habits and patterns. So for me, it's just, I've enjoyed it because now it's given me a chance to teach my daughter things that she's not being taught in school.
Right.
She's just not. It's like I went and collected a bunch of volcano rocks from Sunset Volcano.
And
right?
They can't possibly teach all of it. Like, there's no
I know.
You know what I'm saying? There's no possible way. That's the problem. And some kids, like I said, they want to learn more. They eat it up. Other kids could give a crap less. So then you try to come up with some kind of like half-assed, like this bland, boring one-size-fits-all thing, and then you line students up in little chairs and little rows or what have you, and you teach them exactly what and they pass the test, and it's like you can't. There's so much to learn out there. There's so much to learn.
But again, it's kind of like the system you were talking about. They tell you what to teach and what to do. And yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand what you're saying.
And honestly, if you think about it, wouldn't it be a better use of society's resources if after the end of 12 years, these students actually came out of school with some kind of skills? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Like trade school. That I hope. I don't know if it's kind of still around.
Yeah, there's a lot of jobs though that the bare minimum is you graduated high school.
Yeah.
And it's like you would think after 12 years of the government teaching your kids, they should be able to be fairly competent in something. But even then, you think about all of the multitude of different jobs that are available out there that, nobody can possibly think of on their own. Even like if somebody gives you a pamphlet with all the list of different jobs, kids are going to look at that and go, oh, that's overwhelming. They're not, and even then they're not going to list them all. Yeah. I remember doing something like that where you like put a checkbox next to things you might be interested in. But then it's like, there's no possible way that schools are going to be able to teach that many different subjects, and that I guess that's what college is supposed to be for, or post-secondary school, or technical college.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
things like that. But
I advocate for.
Man, why do we wait till they're 18 though before they, can start to go down their own path?
I don't know, man. It's just that's weird because like I said, I'm a big fan of trade, and I think that's that is the trade school to me is the fabric and the very foundation of what this country was built on. Yeah. From our welders, miners, to technicians. It doesn't. I mean that is just. Yeah, I'm a big advocate for that. Going and paying all this money to go to college for a degree that chances are you may or may not use it. It's just like, really, you could have gone to a 2-year. You could have got a 2-year degree, paid half the less in money, and then you're making more money than somebody with a 4 to 8 year degree. I mean, it's. I'm living proof of that. And it's just. Yeah. But whatever.
All right. Now, this one I wasn't originally going to bring up because it kind of came up in my research later on.
Yeah.
But this is something that I think a lot of people are not aware of. But let me see here. This is from CBS News. They asked the question: has media ignored sex abuse in school? You know how back in the day they were talking about how Catholic priests and rampant pedophilia and molestation by the priests and whatnot, and that shit was going on. Well, interestingly enough, turns out that students are actually about 100 times more likely to be molested before graduation in schools than by Catholic priests. 100 times more likely to be molested in public schools. That's not something that gets talked about often. Not even close. And I even remember, as I'm sitting there reading this, I even remember seeing a couple of teachers that I'm pretty sure they fondled a kid or two.
Man, I tell you what, it's like if you have a child right now that's under the age of 15, you kind of like holding your breath until they graduate.
I know.
Jesus
So,
Christ.
as the National Catholic Register's reporter Wayne Logson points out, the federal report said 422,000 Californian public school students would be victims before graduation. That's just in California. A number that dwarfs the state's entire Catholic school enrollment of 143,000. Yet, during the first half of 2002, the 61 largest newspapers in California ran nearly 2,000 stories about sexual abuse in Catholic institutions, most concerning past allegations. During the same period, those newspapers ran 4 stories about the federal government's discovery of the much larger and ongoing abuse scandal in public schools.
Fuck.
Yeah. Like, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. This is go research this. The media doesn't talk about this.
No.
And there's interesting. I don't even want to call it a theory, because it keeps kind of proving itself over and over again. It's that the media is not interested in protecting kids. Okay.
No.
They
want to exploit them.
They will use children as a way to pull at your heartstrings when it suits their narrative. One of the things that I've noticed is that there is a huge attack on Catholic and Christian beliefs,
Right.
from the media, from the elites, and it's
I've
ongoing
been for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and this is no different. This falls right into exactly what they're doing. That's why you're not hearing anything about Christian persecution in Muslim countries, even though it's rampant right now. That's why you're not hearing Christian persecution in China, even though it's running rampant right now. But what you do hear is about Muslim persecution in China.
And in the U.S.
Uh-huh. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind, too. So that's why when that was such a big deal, the media was running that like crazy. And now it's become just a common joke, like priests be diddling boys. Like, it's a meme now. But when you actually look at the numbers, your kid is way more likely to be molested in schools than they are going to a Catholic church. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And then you worry about homeschooling them because you don't know who's fondling them at home either.
Well,
you know,
I
because
mean,
you always hear about, uncles and brothers.
If they're going to do that, they're going to do it anyway,
I know,
regardless. But
I
I mean, why put your kids in that position? That's what I'm.
I know.
Okay, so forgotten.
And I've got a little
abuse.
girl, and you've got 4 kids. It's like, geez, man, what do you? That's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah. So according to a 2004 study, the most accurate data available at this time indicates that nearly 9.6% of students are targets of educator sexual misconduct sometime during their school career. Yeah, just let that sink in for a minute. And think about who's in control of your kids' minds. Think about who's in control of the media. Think about the stories coming out about rampant pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. Think about the wonderful breeding grounds for a pedophile that school must be.
Man, just thinking about what you just hear in Hollywood.
Like, I'm thinking about people who are stealing data go to the honeypots. They go where the data is.
Yeah.
Same thing with pedophiles. They go where the kids are. That's where they are. That's where they're going to be. And they blend in really well. It's funny. I remember one of the teachers that came to mind. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but the guy taught. He was a science teacher. Taught sex ed, which was a really awkward subject at the time. I'm like, I don't understand why I was learning it as early as I was learning it back in the day. But I remember him the entire class with his hand in his pocket jingling his keys. And the more I think about it, I'm like, I don't know that he was jingling his keys, man. It was super.
He had something on the end of that keychain.
It was super creepy. It really was. It really was. But that's just another thing to keep in mind. Now, I want a slight change of subject here. My son's experience here. I brought this up earlier with Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, for example. All right, now hit the button. There you go. With Hardcore History, Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, and the way that's taught and the way it actually engages your brain, and you want to learn it and you go seek it out, and it's interesting.
Right.
He was talking about Vsauce, for example. He said, I love watching Vsauce because it doesn't feel like I'm learning. It doesn't feel like I'm learning. Again, that negative association with the word learning.
Yeah.
He said by the time I'm done with the episodes, I feel like like they're fascinating. They're interesting. He keeps it, fun and interesting and short and sweet and to the point, and it teaches you, walks you through, takes your hand and walks you through a topic you might be interested in. Things that I've watched Vsauce before, and I freaking love his videos. Like questions that I never even thought I had. All of a sudden, I'm watching a 20-minute video on, what? And my mind's going, wow, that's cool. Like I never would have thought about these things, and it's like just hearing him describe that, and. Are you okay, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay. At the same time, talking about his like again, I don't feel like I'm learning. Like it's a bad thing to be learning. It's like that drives me nuts. That's kind of the mentality that he's gotten after all this time. Sorry if you can't tell, I'm hugely passionate about this subject.
No, I know that you are.
And there was a time in my life where I wanted to make it my life's mission to take down the teachers unions because those guys are a bunch of fucking assholes. 100%. Anyway.
Yeah, so I sent you an article. I don't know if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, let's do that. I've still got a few more to go. Anyway, you were talking about this Florida child. This is from NBC News. Florida child's mother shot and killed during online Zoom class as teacher watches.
Man, you want to play that video? If it'll play?
I can play the video if it'll play. All right, let's.
27-year-old Ronald Williams taken into custody less than an hour after investigators say he shot and killed his ex-girlfriend, 32-year-old Maribel Rosado Morales, while 4 of her children and 2 of their cousins, all between 10 and 17 years old, were inside the home.
He went in and confronted her with something to do with a video. Then later we learned there was a conversation about Facebook.
Sheriff William Snyder says a 10-year-old was logged on to their remote learning for Warfield Elementary School.
The teacher said that she heard a commotion, heard profanity, realized there was some kind of domestic altercation, still can see the child that's online. The teacher said she mutes her button, nobody has to hear it, and then she sees the 10-year-old put her hands up to her ears.
A bullet even hit the girl's computer, causing the screen to go black. Sheriff Snyder said Williams took off and tried to get on the county's public bus, but the bus driver ran off the bus and called 911, sensing something wasn't right.
As fortune would have it, we actually had several members of our SWAT team were out in western Martin County in the Indiantown area for training. And they went right to the bus and took the suspect into custody.
They also recovered the gun on the bus, stolen from a car in Sewell's Point in 2015.
My heart goes out to this family and these children, and that is the biggest concern for me, is the protection of those children.
The Martin County School District says grief teams are deployed to assist students in the
First of all, sorry to interrupt. Can we talk about that mask game she's got going on? Like, dude, she's got some killer mask game going on.
This is so not appropriate to talk about right now. Go ahead.
What, you're over
talking about a child's
The
mom
Martin
that
County
just
School
died,
District
dude.
says grief teams are deployed to assist students and the teachers impacted by this. Snyder says the Department of Children and Families is also working with the children in the home.
All right, so there's that. What the hell, man?
Yeah, part of the reasons why.
So what did you get? What did you get out of that? There was a reason you wanted to share that.
Yeah,
particular
I know,
story.
and of course, whoa, that's great. I love that. There's a reason as to why, as the what the fuck that is it on that? Yeah, what the fuck is that on Wish? Part of the reasons why I want to bring this up is because I know that the hot debate right now is signing this. Not the privacy confidentiality for student and teacher, but the welfare check that was also kind of implemented on Rutherford County here in Tennessee. This all the way, I mean, this has been on some major news networks.
Yeah, that was in my notes here to get to, for sure.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro has talked about it on the Daily Wire and you know, just kind of wanting to understand or trying to get people to understand why they're wanting to do welfare checks on children or the homes during the virtual learning. A lot of people don't agree with this. That's fine. But when you have situations like this is kind of what they're probably looking at or discussing is the possibilities of doing the welfare checks on homes that have had trouble past, you know, and they've had issues with, you know, students and, you know, parents and things of that nature. I don't think they're just going to arbitrarily start checking everybody's home and find out what's going on and things like that. I think they're more or less talking about the people that have got a track record, you know, with domestic, you know, abuse or, you know, stuff like this. I mean, this is what I want people to understand.
Yeah.
I want people to understand that it is for the safety of the children. because we don't know what goes on at home.
Right.
Okay. And we don't know what kids are being exposed to. If they're being bullied, if they're being harassed, if their, parents are yelling at them or hitting them or, putting cigarettes out on their arms or, there's just, you always hear the horror stories. Now, the reasons why I want to bring this up is because we've also had this correlation with COVID-19, with being quarantined.
Right.
A lot of people are out of work. And as we mentioned earlier,
at the statistics about domestic abuse
it's
going on.
gone way up, dude.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this and we see, and you mentioned that spouses are now spending more time with their children more than ever, and that it's a relationship that we're probably not accustomed to. And the children might be seeing more than on the average of what they typically see for maybe a few hours at a day. So I think maybe, and I could be way off base here, but maybe this is the school system saying, hey, we see the stats, we see the numbers, we see that domestic violence is causing, it's going up. Mm-hmm. We're a little concerned. But we also know that there have been kids in our school that have gone through the system that have had known issues and problems with the homes in, years prior. So I'm wondering if they're looking at those, those students. Are they looking at everybody collectively, or what they're kind of looking at from this?
That's one of the interesting things that we've gotten into some debates about, I think, and that's one thing we probably disagree on is the fact that yes, there are abuse cases going on at home. I don't want to discount that at all because 100% these things go on. We know they go on. They go reported. A lot of it goes unreported, and then when you have students isolated at home, there's a lot more of them that's going to go unreported. By the statistics, we see that some of them are getting reported. Otherwise we wouldn't have the statistics to go by, right? Right. So they are being reported. Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, I feel like if we have again, the incentives. I'm going back to the incentives. If we have an incentive to raise our kids, if we talk about the policing, I'm trying to find a good starting point here.
I know.
We talk about policing and how it's kind of all wrong and how that would be handled in a polite, free society. Right. I think it would be handled a lot more differently, where police would be focused on prevention versus cure. Okay, so you would have, I would say you would probably have some kind of an insurance that you would have, where part of that insurance is, okay, the insurance company is going to come in and they're going to evaluate your children, kind of see where they're at with their mental health, make sure they're getting proper checkups. And for each of those things you do, that you guys get discounts on your rates and things like that. They do similar things with like this with your auto insurance. Right. And as a result, if your kid ends up doing something wrong or something like that, the insurance company has to pay out, or if the police, there's many different facets of how this could work. And again, I'm not a guy that can see all the possible solutions. Right. But I'm saying there's so much wrong here that makes it where the kids end up in these fucked situations.
No, I agree.
Okay. And quite frankly, it's not the teacher's business. It's not their responsibility to deal with that. It's just not. Yes, as I've said before, if anybody sees that, it's kind of your responsibility to report it. Yes. Yeah. But it's not the state's responsibility to come into my home with warrantless just to check on my kids whenever they want. You know how easily that system can be abused.
Even if they have a previous record of domestic violence within the home or towards the children?
That would be where you would actually be able to get a warrant to go to the home, because you'd go to a judge and say, look, these guys have a previous history of doing this, and the judge would, any judge would go, yeah, absolutely, go check that fucking home out.
That's what I'm saying. Is this what this is implying? We don't know.
It might be.
We don't know the details.
My concern is always with the abuse of that power. Okay, well, if we give them the power, they can abuse the power and will abuse the power.
Right, but that's with any situation. I guess my point is we really don't know what they're wanting to do with this just yet. Our immediate reaction is, abuse of power.
Some people's immediate reaction is yes, and other people come from a different standpoint. Right. They see the abuse going on. They understand the need for it. None of it's correct. Right. Like, none of that's correct. The abuse wouldn't be happening as much as it's happening if we had a whole system that was based on prevention versus cure. Right. If we had all the focus on the kids and making sure that they actually got what they needed and they weren't used as political tools.
I know.
Like, we could create a system where they are complete beneficiaries of that system.
But that's what I'm saying. This whole thing with the virtual learning is exposing a lot of this stuff that's going on within the homes.
Yeah, it could be.
So if it gives the teachers the opportunity to pull a child out of that situation, I'm all for that.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I'm for that up to a certain point. up to the point where government agents are coming into my home without a warrant to search my home to check on the welfare of my kids. I'm sorry, that's too much, because that, like I said, that can be abused. For every story, for every legitimate story you hear, you can go and find other story where that power was abused and somebody had their kids taken away from them because the state got a wild bug up their ass,
or somebody made up a story and you don't know if it's true.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Somebody who has a vendetta against you makes up a story. Oh, they're abusing their kids. They're diddling their little boys in there. I just know it.
But this is why I'm saying,
somebody has to go investigate that.
Right, but I guess what I'm getting at is they're not really being specific on who they're going to do their welfare checks on. Exactly. When you go back and read the articles, you just don't know.
Yeah.
That's the question I'm asking that I'm imposing on others is this what they're referencing to, is the fact that they're wanting to do these checks on homes that had a previous, history with domestic violence and altercations and abuse towards children. So I don't know.
Jason was saying the previous record should be the easiest way to obtain the warrant. Still need a warrant. Yeah, I mean, a warrantless search is unconstitutional.
But and I'm with you on that.
I mean, this just based on the Constitution alone.
Right.
Like if I went off nothing else but that,
right.
Like that is unconstitutional.
I think
child welfare checks are unconstitutional. You cannot come into my home without a warrant unless you have reasonable cause and a warrant.
Right. I'm agreeing with you, but what I'm saying is that, best way for me to explain this, we need to ask our districts. We need to ask our school teachers, the principals. We need to ask, the school board, what do you mean by doing a welfare?
It's a hard word. I know.
Welfare checks.
Well, welfare.
You screwed it up earlier.
Welfare checks, guys. Welfare checks.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what folks need to do, because it's not clear and cut and dry. You need to ask these questions. You need to go, talk to your school board, find out what's going on.
Yeah,
that's what I would suggest to people to do.
Not to mention, how many cops do we know that sit there and plant false evidence on people just to get the arrest, or because they have that power to do that. They'll plant a baggie in your car.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there isn't.
There's so many ways that can be abused and will be abused.
Yeah, I'm not saying that shit doesn't exist or doesn't happen. I mean, I know it does.
Yeah, it's a tough problem. And what I'm proposing is, if you remove the state, we would be totally it would totally shift everybody's focus on what's actually important. How do we actually solve these problems versus, I'm just going to go ahead and give my money to the state and hopefully pick the guy that's going to solve the problem the best way.
Mm-hmm.
That means every individual doesn't have to take responsibility in actually solving the problem. I'm just putting it on somebody else. I'll let them deal with it.
But like I said, this is...
And that's a lot of reason why the schools have become the way they are, and why parents feel like the students, or feel like the teachers are required to teach their kids all these ththings that the teachers don't need to be doing all that. They don't have to wear all them hats. But now they've become some kind of glorified babysitter under the pretense of being actual teachers. Yeah.
I'm just hoping that before we get all gun ho and mighty on this thing, I think we need to step back, take a deep breath, ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are constantly vigilant and looking for these potential abuses, kind of looking down the tunnel of time and seeing, hey, if this is a reality, what could be the consequences? And that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. And I again,
me personally,
every one of these policies comes from with a grain of truth. Otherwise, they would be completely ridiculous. So,
I'm going to be honest with you. If they showed up at my house and said, "Hey, we're just doing a welfare check," I would be like, "All right, come on in." I just don't have anything to hide. That doesn't bother me, dude. It just doesn't.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything to hide either, but I'm like, the fuck you are. You come back with a warrant, you ain't coming into my house.
See, that's just the perception mentality is that doesn't bother me.
Because the second they come into your house, it's their perception that matters. Whatever they think you're doing, that's what holds up in court. It doesn't matter if you actually don't have anything to hide. If they come in there and think that you have something to hide, and they can make up whatever the hell they want to make up.
Well, that's why you got to go through due process
find out. We've seen how well that's worked for people. Yeah.
Yep.
My mom says, "Stay strong, Anthony Trawick." Yes. Hashtag Facebook Jail Diaries for those of you who want to know what this is all about. All right. So I do want to make sure we do definitely hit on this one, because this is a pretty important one.
Yeah.
Not that one. Okay. From Fox News, Philadelphia public school teacher worries about conservative parents listening in on virtual classes. And this is one of the things that a lot of people cite as reasons why we're okay. So the other article was about them requiring a parents to sign some kind of form saying that I will not watch my kids in their e-learning classes. This is exactly why we're saying fuck that. You know,
What's wrong with children having their privacy? To
well,
be able to
it's
teach
not
with
it's not so
their
much
teachers?
it's not so much a privacy thing, because as we've talked about before, I could go into the classroom anytime I want and see the very same thing.
Right.
What's the difference between looking over their shoulder at the screen? It really ain't.
Well, I mean, okay.
The only major difference in that I can tell is that the teacher doesn't know when you're watching, versus if you go into the classroom, the teacher knows when you're coming in, and they can change their tune real quick. All of a sudden, we're not teaching critical race theory anymore.
Let me ask you this: could it be a situation? I don't know. I have not read this article, so you might have to kind of bring me up to speed on it. But could this be a situation maybe where they wanted to basically pull kids out of an element? If there's other siblings or TV in the background, that could be distractions as to why they would want the privacy for their kids to be able to focus and learn what they need to learn. Could that be?
Not the way these particular teachers are saying. According to a report by the Daily Wire, Matthew Kay, who teaches English at a Science Leadership Academy, said on the social media platform that he is concerned about the quote-unquote damage that quote-unquote helicopter parents might cause if they overhear lessons on topics such as gender and sexuality. He says, and I tried to go check into his Twitter feed and check this out. It is gone, baby, gone.
Is it? Wow.
Well, Matt RK is on private right now. But they luckily got a picture of it, so you can go check that out as well. I'm losing that. And while conservative parents are my chief concern, I know that the damage can come from the left too, if we're engaging the messy work of destabilizing. So hang on.
This is a left and a right kind of situation, is what this turns into.
Yeah, some of it's turning into that. Yeah, like you were talking about earlier, the very progressive teachers and stuff are very concerned that conservative parents are going to see what they're actually teaching, which kind of on some level should be a red flag that maybe what you're teaching these kids is complete bullshit.
Yeah, this is true.
I don't know. All right.
Becky said, I'll just stay quiet on this. Sweetheart, we know your thoughts on this.
All right. I'm trying to find where the actual thing was. Okay. While conversations about race are in my wheelhouse and remain a concern in this no-walls environment, I am most intrigued by the damage that helicopter snowplow parents can do in the host conversations about gender sexuality. And while conservative parents are my chief concern, I know that the damage can come from the left too. If we are engaged in the messy work of destabilizing a kid's racism or homophobia or transphobia, how much do we want their classmates' parents piling on? That's bullshit. Like, I don't believe anywhere in your job description should you be destabilizing a kid's racism, homophobia, or transphobia. That's a problem. That is a huge problem.
That's something that shouldn't be discussed with kids at all.
I agree, 100%. 100%. And that's what I'm saying is they don't want conservative parents peeking in because, like I said,
because this is something the left liberals have been teaching our kids early on, going all the way up into college. Now that they're in college, they are so progressive and
you see the decline of the
socialism and
the more government involvement gets into the college system, you see how that's going on the decline.
Yeah,
100%.
And have you ever watched those?
It's all like this subtle brainwashing, social engineering, and shit going on, and it's gotten so widespread that you got things like this where the teachers feel like they feel like they're being heroes here.
Right.
They feel like they're doing good things and trying to save society by, like, what do you say, destabilizing a kid's racism or homophobia or transphobia. Like, yeah, I get it. You feel like you're doing the Lord's work, so to speak, from a left perspective. But good Lord, man.
Have you ever seen those videos where they go on college campuses? The most recent one, I can't remember his name, but he was asking students of this particular college, should they remove a certain statue?
Yeah.
And no, I'm sorry. No, not statue. They were asking, or they were quoting a former president. And it was all quotes from Obama. But when the guy was asking the students on campus, he was asking, what do you think about Trump saying these quotes, which were from Obama? And they were talking about how racist and how homophobic and all this was. Then, at the very end of the video, the guy says, well, that wasn't Trump that said it. It was Obama.
Yeah.
They would still feel the same way about Trump, even though he wasn't the one that said that.
Yep.
That's where their minds are.
Oh, I get it.
It
It's
is
complete brainwashing.
It's bad,
You got to
dude.
get them. That's just it. You got to get them early. You got to get them often, and you got to have complete control of the entire system.
What I don't understand is, okay, so from the left side at the very beginning was talking about how, Trump was racist, and what's the other one where he treated women poorly. He was very sexist, right?
Sexist, homophobe,
Yeah,
bigot,
okay.
any kind of negative term you can
This
throw at the guy.
came from the left.
Yeah.
The hard progressive, left-leaning liberals, socialism, left side. Now we have a candidate running for the Democratic Party, Joe Biden,
Yep.
who, if you remember, back when Joe Biden was accused of all these allegations of sexual harassment, it was Kamala Harris that said we should believe the accusers
Right.
of Joe Biden's.
Right.
Now all of a sudden he's got her as her VP or his VP for president,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they're buddies and they're ready to take on all the evil shit that Trump has done. And I'm thinking to myself, how are people not seeing this? How are people not seeing this?
Because
They're
conditioned not to.
What I've learned is that people's attention spans only last longer than about 5 hours, and they forget this stuff that happened over the last 4 years.
Yep.
You talk about racism. How many times have Joe Biden referenced black people and, you're not black if you don't vote for me?
Oh my God, that was.
But that's what I'm saying.
So
These
bad.
same people who are going to vote for Joe Biden are saying that Trump is racist, but yet you're willing to elect a racist
Yeah.
for president. I'm like, I want to throw my headphones. I really want to hit the TV sometimes because I'm like, do you people listen to anything that you're saying? Do you understand the words that are coming out of your mouth that you've been saying about the last 4 years about Trump, but yet you're willing to also vote somebody in
Yep.
that has actually done this shit, that has been caught on camera
With evidence.
saying these things? Touching young girls inappropriately.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why? Because they have that much hate towards Trump. They are willing to do whatever it is at all cost.
Literally.
At all cost.
Yeah.
To get him out of office.
Hashtag vote blue no matter who.
Yeah.
All right. One last article to put a finer point on the what we were just been talking about. From the Daily Wire, we've got teachers openly fret that parents might hear them brainwashing children, call parents quote unquote dangerous. Now, I couldn't read this because I'm not paying for the article, but I did have somebody who was nice enough to take screenshots for me and send it to me. So, in one of the creepiest yet most revealing Twitter threads, hey, you got to get the job done one way or the other. A teacher recently fretted out loud that virtual classes might allow parents to hear him brainwashing their kids. Matthew R.K., which is who we were just talking about, he says, how to lead meaningful race conversations in the classroom. It's a book he wrote, How to Lead Meaningful Race Conversations in the Classroom. Worried that conservative parents would be able to interfere with our messy work, which we already read that. So he goes on. So here's the entire thread, which has since been set to private. And this is the one I was trying to find it, and yeah, here it is. So this fall, he says, virtual class discussions will have many potential spectators, parents, siblings, etc., in the same room. We'll never be quite sure who is overhearing the discourse. What does this do for our equity inclusion work? How much have students depended on the somewhat secure barriers of our physical classrooms to encourage vulnerability? How many of us have installed some version of what happens here stays here to help this? All right. While conversations about race are in my wheelhouse and remain a concern in this no-walls environment, which we already read that, the helicopter snowplow parents and trying to destabilize a kid's racism, et cetera. So, in participation in this exercise is stunted now because outsiders are listening. The outsider, to be clear, are the children's parents. A teacher with pronouns listed in her Twitter handle said that she plans to use the chat function more than voice lectures because she wants children to share quote-unquote information with her in a parentless way. A science teacher agreed with all of the sentiments expressed here and summarized it bluntly. Parents are dangerous. Again, remember what I mentioned earlier? That in an ideal system, it would be a relationship between the parents, the students, and the teachers. But no, what we're seeing here is exactly the opposite of that. The teachers in opposition to the parents.
The
That's
teachers
no
are calling
way.
the parents that are dangerous. Wow.
The teachers and parents need to be working together for the betterment of the student,
Man.
not this bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, and these are just the comments that were captured in screenshots before the tweets were all made private. Presumably there's more where this came from, a lot more. Several points must be made in response. Anyway, you get the point.
Yep.
You get the point. I'm not going to read their response. If you want to look at that, go ahead over the Daily Wire, look it up yourself. Or have somebody screenshot the article for you.
Cheap ass.
I know it. Hey, you got to save money where you can.
Tell me about it. I've been doing that for the last, 23 days?
So this has been a pretty huge topic here, and
What the fuck is that on Wish?
yeah, we're going to go ahead and run our segment, What the Fuck Is That on Wish, here in a second. Just some closing thoughts on this here.
Yeah.
And I appreciate y'all hanging in there with us for this, because this is a pretty important topic, and there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of different angles, and all this stuff's been going on for, well past 50, 60 years. This is not a new phenomenon. This is just a slow encroachment of state power into our lives, into our living rooms. I didn't even mention the idea of, two parents working in the household, and the idea of separating students or children from the parents that way. But we'll get to that another time. But did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to wrap up with?
No, just a couple of things. And this has really nothing to do with what we discussed tonight as far as when it comes to children. Now, what I did like about tonight's show is that we really talked about something more than just the political atmosphere we're currently in.
Right.
We're not talking about Black Lives Matter. We're not talking about none of this bullshit that you currently we got seeing or going on in our society. Yeah. What I like about what we do is, and I'm not trying to make ourselves look good, is that we're bringing this to light that I'm not seeing on a lot of major platforms, even on major platforms that are podcasts as well.
Right.
They're not having these discussions, and I really hope that at some point that more and more people start having these kind of conversations when it comes to our children.
Right.
Now, getting away from that. I've been in Facebook jail now for, I think, 23 days or so. Mm-hmm. And all I can do is sit back. I can't comment. I can't say anything. I can't react. I can't do none of this shit, right? So I have never seen more of a division between black and white people than I ever have in my life. Over the course of 23 days, I have seen some of the most racial shit said to one another from both sides. Okay. And as just an observer, I guess because I get so inundated in posting articles, sharing things, interacting in conversations on other conversations or post.
It's different.
I don't have time.
It's different when literally all you can do is be a fly on the wall.
Right. So being that fly on the wall, I'm literally just trying to understand, because my big thing is I want to understand the human behavior in which people act a certain way, talk a certain way, present themselves a certain way, mm-hmm. and conduct themselves accordingly. And it's bad. Just reading comments, dude. And I don't care if you're being a keyboard warrior or whatever you want to call it. I am seeing the videos of Black Lives Matter beating the shit out of white people for no fucking reason, only because now they feel like they can.
Yeah.
And, when we had Ashley on the show and we were talking about the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and part of the reasons why I don't agree with it is because of this very situation. And, people want to say, well, it's only been hijacked by a few people. No, it hasn't. Yeah, we're going to cover that here in a second. And it's almost like, you always hear black people say that white people are racist. Now I'm saying I think black people are more racist than white people. I have seen more white people support black individuals who want to run as a Republican into office. Mm-hmm. I've seen more support from white people when black people break themselves away from the Democratic plantation. Because if you want the honest, brutal truth about this whole situation, there's more white people that want to see black people thrive, whether you believe it or not. Black people, white people really want that to happen, mm-hmm. but you're just so brainwashed into thinking we don't want this for you, when in fact we do. And it's very disappointing to see that there's so many people out there not willing to say, okay, we've had so many Democratic, cities that have had control for more than 50-something years. We've seen the decline. And why can't you just say, you know what, in 50-something years, if we haven't had any legitimate changes, why don't we try something different? White people did that with Trump. It wasn't about race. Because I can tell you something right now, and I might get a lot of flack for this, I honestly believe a lot of black people voted for Obama because he was black. Not because of his policies,
no doubt.
not because of whatever the case might be. It's because of his skin color is why they voted for him. Call me a racist. I don't care. I don't give a shit. But that's the truth. And that's the truth of the matter, because you know what? I find black people saying the same thing about white people when they voted for Trump. But anyways, no, just my closing thoughts on this is that take some time when you get on social media and read the comments. Don't reply. Don't let them get to you. Just read the comments. You will find yourself learning more than you ever have about the human behavior in which people conduct themselves. It's sad. It's really toxic, but it also kind of tells you where we're at in our society, and it's kind of messed up.
Well, let's I'll tell you what. Let's wrap up on what the fuck is that? I wish. And if you guys want to stay tuned for after the show, meet us over on the Unframed Minds group, either on Telegram or in Facebook.
We doing a Zoom tonight?
Private group. We're gonna do a Zoom call after the show. We talked about this already.
Oh, I thought that was next week. Zoom call. Come fuck with us.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
All right.
I'm hanging, dude. I'm hanging.
We're doing a Zoom.
I ain't got to work tonight.
All right, me either. We're doing a Zoom call right after the show, so if you guys want to come in there and discuss what we talked about tonight, I'd love to hear y'all's feedback, what you thought about the show, what you thought about the topics we covered, and any additional commentary. Hell, you can talk about your pedicure for all I care. I don't give a crap. That chat is for you guys and you guys alone.
And we love getting to know you guys that have never been on there, so we do encourage folks that have never been a part of our Zoom calls. Just if you want to just hop in and just listen, and it's a really cool thing that we got going. And like I said before, you don't hear a lot of people doing what we're doing, and it's great.
Jason says my ass hurts. Congratulations, homie. I appreciate that. If I'll tell you what, we can probably do a group butt rub during the
I've
Zoom
had a lot
call.
of butt rubbing over the last 23 days.
All right, so here we go.
Rub my butt.
This is one of my favorite segments of the show. Here we go. You
go.
ready? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is that on Wish? And today on Wish, we've been advertised this product. I don't know what it is, but it looks sparkly and it looks amazing. And I'm really, really, really not sure what the hell it is. Are you?
When I sent this over to you, I was thinking T-shirt, maybe a poster. I don't know.
Well, see, here
I got an idea, because and then here's the thing, though.
Look here. Oh, go ahead. What's the thing?
I'm thinking I think it's a golden shower, because that's a big thing over in Asia or Japan or wherever it's at. Yeah, it's golden showers are like the big thing over there.
Yeah,
it's a turn on.
I wish I could read.
So,
I wish I could read Mandarin to know what the heck it says down there in the bottom corner.
I can't see it.
Yeah, it's really tiny, but maybe that would give us some insight into what it is. Even the big letters on the side might give us some insight.
I think it says illustration by.
Well, no, that's written in English, dude. I can read English.
No.
Okay, so look up here. Look up here. Okay, for those of you who are just listening, we're seeing like some kind of cute little anime girl with her little cat ears. And she's laying on her back with her legs up in the air, spread apart. She's kind of holding them back and exposing all of her glory to us. Yeah. And by all of her glory, what I mean is we're seeing like this sparkly, shining light out of there, which actually, no joke, was how my first sexual experience went. It looked just like this, like no difference at all. It was wild. I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe that it was actually that sparkly.
But I'm trying to.
It smelled like pine sol too. It was great. But
it was for me. But that was at a strip club. I came home with glitter and
a different kind of shiny, huh?
Yeah,
no, mine was legit magic. And it wasn't no lens flare either. It wasn't a lens flare. I wasn't watching porn, okay? That is not what was happening.
So I'm just trying to figure out, what is this?
Okay.
Like, is this a T-shirt?
Becky says it's the promised land. Yeah. I 100% agree. I think we're gonna settle on that for the night.
And I'm just gonna give y'all just a little bit of something you didn't know about me kind of segment. I kind of like little porn anime. It's all good, man.
Do you do tentacle porn?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't go that far. That's kind of
I just got to
dude.
figure out where your boundaries are.
No, that is my boundaries, but yeah. No, so Jessica was asking Zoom call ? Okay, so all you have to do is go over to Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, we'll drop the link into the comment section on our YouTube on this video.
No, we don't drop it here.
Oh shit! I thought we did last time.
No, it's private only.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Private
So
group
go to
only.
Facebook.
Make sure you're following us on our Facebook group. We have a public page and we have a private group. You can find all of our
Right.
links. You can find all of our links over at Facebook, unframeofmind.com, and then hit the tab that says "Find Us On," and there's all of our links. And just go for the Facebook group.
Yeah, and then all you got to do is just click the link, and then Daniel will accept the Zoom call, and basically it's just we can just talk and have a good time and get to know each other, and we got some members that have been a part of it
And
for a while.
I'm gonna
and
switch cameras because we've been running 2 hours on this, and last time my phone crashed. So we're gonna switch cameras before we do that. Matter of fact, I may even. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, there'll be a Zoom call here in a few minutes. So y'all stay tuned for that. I appreciate y'all joining us tonight. This has been another uncomfortable conversation without a condom. Y'all been watching the Unframed